Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. Chapter 1. Now, I just want to say one thing more. We begin with psychology, study of oneself, of the human machine, of states of consciousness, methods of correcting things, and so on. But at the same time, an important part of the system is given to doctrines of general laws of the world. Because we cannot understand even ourselves if we do not know some of the fundamental laws which lie behind all things. Ordinary scientific knowledge is not sufficient for this, because just as important points of absence, of self-remembering were missed in psychology, so our science either forgot or never knew the fundamental laws on which everything is based. As I said, all things in the world, whether big or small, on every scale, are based on two fundamental laws, which in this system are called the law of three and the law of seven. The law of three, in a short description, means that three forces enter into every manifestation, into every phenomenon and every event. They are called, but these are only words because they do not express their qualities. They are called positive, negative, and neutralizing, or active, passive, and neutralizing. Or, still more simply, they may be called first force, second force, and third force. These three forces enter into everything. In many cases, we understand the need of two forces, that one force cannot create an action. There is an action and resistance, but generally we are not aware of the third force. This is connected with the state of our being, the state of our consciousness. In another state, we would be aware of it. In many cases where we do not see it now. Sometimes we find examples of third force in ordinary scientific study. For example, in chemistry and in biology, we can find the necessity of a third force in the creation of events and phenomena. We begin with the study of psychology. Later we shall talk more about the three forces, and we may find some examples of their interaction. But it is better to be prepared and get accustomed now to the idea of the need to study these three forces. The law of seven must also be described briefly. It means that no process in the world goes without interruptions. To illustrate this idea, let's take a certain period of activity in which vibrations are increasing. Suppose they begin at 1,000 vibrations a second and increase to 2,000 vibrations a second. This period is called an octave, because this law was applied to music, and the period was divided into 7 notes and a repetition of the first note. The octave, particularly the major octave, is really a picture or formula of a cosmic law, because in cosmic arrangements within one octave, there are 2 movements when vibrations slow down by themselves. Vibrations do not develop regularly. In the major octave, this is shown by the missing semitones, and that's why we're told that it is a picture of the cosmic law. But this law has nothing to do with music. The reason why it is necessary to understand the law of seven is that it plays a very important part in all events. If there were no law of seven, everything in the world would go to its final conclusion. But because of this law, everything deviates. For instance, if rain began, it would go on without stopping. If floods began, they would cover everything. If an earthquake began, it would go on indefinitely. But they stop because of the law of seven. Because at every missing semitone, things deviate. They do not go in straight lines. The law of seven also explains why there are no straight lines in nature. Everything in our life and our machine is also based on this law. So we shall study it in the work of our organism, because we have to study ourselves, not only psychologically, not only in connection with our mental life, but also in connection with our physical life. In our physical processes, we find many examples of the working of this law. At the same time, the law of 7 explains that if you know how and at what moment to do it, you can give an additional shock to an octave and keep the line straight. We can observe in human activity how people start to do one thing and after some time do quite a different thing, still calling it by the first name without noticing that things have completely changed. But in personal work, particularly in work connecting with this system, we must learn how to keep these octaves from deviating and how to keep a straight line. Otherwise, we shall not find anything. We have to keep returning to psychology, even when studying other sides of the system, because only with the help of psychological study can we really increase our knowledge. Without it, we shall only be learning words. Only when we know how to study ourselves psychologically in relation to the working of our minds, our cognition, and so on, can we begin to understand something. I will try to give some examples of how self-study should begin. We spoke already of lying, and I gave a possible definition of psychology as the study of lying. So one of the first and most important things for you to observe is lying. Very much akin to lying are our illusions, things about which we deceive ourselves, wrong ideas, wrong convictions, wrong views, and so on. All of these must be studied, because until we begin to understand our illusions, we can never see the truth. In everything, we must first separate our illusions from facts, and only then will it be possible to see whether we can actually learn something new. One of the most important and most difficult illusions to conquer is our conviction that we can do in quotes, D-O. Try to understand what that means. We think that we make a plan, decide, start, and achieve what we want. But the system explains that man, 1, 2, and 3, cannot do anything. Everything just happens to him. That may sound strange, particularly now when everybody thinks they can do something. But little by little you will understand that many things we are accustomed to say about man generally could only be true about men of higher level and do not apply to men of our low level. If you say that man can do, that would be right about man number 7 or number 6 or even number 5 can do something in comparison with us, but we can do nothing. You might say that you think man has consciousness. That would be right in relation to man number 5, 6, or 7, beginning at number 5. And if you were to say that man has conscience, that would be right in relation to man number 4, but not into relation to man number 1, 2, and 3. We must learn to distinguish to which category of man things refer, because some things are right in relation to one category, but wrong in relation to another. It's very important to understand that man cannot do, because this is the basis of our view of ourselves. And even when we become disappointed with ourselves, we think that other people can do. We cannot accept completely and fully that things happen mechanically and that nobody gives a push to them. At first, it's difficult to see this on a big scale, but you will see it very soon in yourself. In studying yourself, if you try to do certain things which generally you do not do, for instance, if you try to remember yourself, if you try to be aware of yourself, then very soon you will see whether you can do something or not. And in most cases, you'll find that you cannot do it.